We have another widely misinterpreted Supreme Court case right here. It happened a few days ago on the emergency docket. The Supreme Court lifted an injunction that a lower court put on Trump's OMB memo, and that memo said, do reductions in force following applicable law. And Sotomayor, of course, concurring, said, well, if the memo itself says to follow the law, we have no reason to rule it illegal, right? That's what the lower court did. I don't know why. Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote the dissent, saying, oh, Trump is just doing bad stuff. Of course he is, but that doesn't mean it's illegal yet. It's likely going to be illegal. The stuff that he wants them to do is likely a violation of reduction in force law, but they did not even rule if the reduction in force is legal or not. They just said it's likely to succeed in court the way the OMB memo is written right now. But let's listen to this guy talk about it.
As we're trying to do a budget here, and we got Doge going, and we got things we got to do here, and we are broke, right? We are broke. We have an unbalanced budget, and so I think...
All right, mistake number one, you're not allowed to do reduction in force just to save money. You're allowed to do reduction in force in response to less money, and you're allowed to do reduction in force in order to achieve the same outcome with less people. You're not allowed to do it to change kind of the goal of an agency or change the functionality of an agency. Like, you can't do reduction in force of the IRS and make them, as a consequence of that reduction in force, do like 20% less audits. Like, that's against the mission of the IRS, so that is not a reduction in force, that is a cut, and that needs to be passed by Congress, right? That's the difference. And again, the court didn't even rule on the legality of these RAFs, to the extent that they're just in the OMB memo, right? We're ruling the OMB memo right now, not the RAFs themselves.
There needs to be large-scale reductions in the federal workforce, and I'm going to submit and I want to submit my wishes to the purse, which is Congress, and I want to sign an executive order that says we want to see reductions in the federal workforce. Well, the Supreme Court looked at it, and 8-1, they said, the president has the power to do that. He's the president. He signed an executive order.
All right, this guy is so dumb. He's literally like incredibly stupid. He's not stupid. He just didn't do any research. The Supreme Court didn't even rule on the legality there. It just said it was likely to succeed in court as it's written right now, not even as it's going to play out. Right? The text of the OMB memo, which says you must follow applicable law, is legal. That's what they said. Now, Ketanji Brown Jackson went a little bit further and said, well, they're probably going to break the applicable law, and then Sotomayor would say, well, at that point, we're going to rule on it again in the Supreme Court. She said, this issue of RAF is not before the Supreme Court. Like, we're not ruling on these layoffs. We're ruling on the injunction. But this guy hasn't read that. Also, it's not a signed dissent, so we don't know if Kagan dissented. I think it's either 8-1 or 7-2, because I think the only opinions we know for sure are Jackson's and Sotomayor's.
And Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson was the only dissenter. Here we come, authoritarianism. They keep saying authoritarianism. The president has authority. They just don't want him to have that authority, so they keep saying authoritarianism. But in this case, 8 other Supreme Court justices, including Sandra Sotomayor...
But the president does not have that authority. It does not. Like, you just said, oh, I'm a president, I want to submit my cuts to Congress, therefore I'm going to issue an executive order. That's what he just said. That's not how it works. You're not allowed to cut for the budget as the executive. It's the most basic separation of powers. The most basic, like the first thing you learn in middle school. Like, you have to submit a plan to Congress to be signed through in legislation. Like, these cuts are meant to restructure, make more efficient. They're not allowed to, and they have to be done in response to lack of funds. Right? Or inefficiencies, but not simply to, make more room in the budget. The president does not have that power.
And you know what Sotomayor said? You'll love this, Vinny. He said, well, the president can't restructure federal agencies. if he's trying to do it inconsistent with congressional mandates, because Congress makes the budgets and like the Department of Agriculture.
Yes, we have RAF laws. When are you allowed to reduce force? When are you not? So the OMB memo is therefore non-injunctionable because it says you must follow the law. So once those RAFs are actually in place, the Supreme Court can look at it again and say, did you actually follow the law here or did you not?
Congress makes a budget. And so the president can't restructure a federal agency inconsistent with that. But the executive order was only directing agency to create plans consistent with applicable law. So even Sotomayor is saying, the president has the power to tell you to get ready for layoffs because we're broke. But he's not trying to restructure the Department of Agriculture or something. He's just telling you, get ready, it's budget season, and this is what I want to do.
Oh my gosh. And you can't say the president does not have anything to do with the budget. Nothing to do. He can say, get ready, it's time to change who we hire because the way we're doing things now is inefficient, and in order to accomplish the same goal, we can hire a few less people. He can do that, but he can't say, we're broke, we have to cut the personnel and therefore the functionality of all these government agencies. Like, he can't do that. He can't cut functionality. He can only make things more efficient, right? Because Congress has authorized that functionality and it's authorized the mission statements of all these agencies, so the president can't come in and sabotage that. It's called unconstitutional. But Sotomayor is, of course, correct, as she usually is, saying, well, if they follow the laws, the RAF laws that are statutorily passed by Congress, then we're going to be fine. And I don't know how Trump can follow those laws with the amount of layoffs he wants to do. With the amount of layoffs he wants to do, it looks like a budget thing. Like you're not going to be able to keep up the same functionality with those amount of layoffs, right? It doesn't make much sense.
And you're not answering my calls, so guess what? Screw you. Here's an executive order.
Yeah.
And under my authority. And everybody goes, oh my gosh, it's authoritarianism. And then 8 Supreme Court justices, including Kagan and Sotomayor, say, no, he's actually not trying to restructure the agency. He's just telling you that you got to trim your budget and you may have to lay off some people. That's what he's saying.
I don't understand this guy. Like, restructuring agencies is something that the president can do. Saying it's budget time is something the president cannot do. He can restructure the agencies so long as they keep their function out. Like I keep saying, like look at their reduction in force laws.
And Ketanji Brown Jackson says, I don't know, I can't even go into it. She sounded like Charlie Brown's teacher. Remember that?
Yeah, it was a political dissent. It's basically saying like Trump will break the law, so we have to preempt that, and it's like, well, that's not how this works. So, another misinterpreted Supreme Court ruling, as they often are. And this is why you shouldn't listen to Valuetainment, right? Unless you're critiquing it. They do so little research, and they have such monumental idiots on the panel, like not including this guy. I would say just Vinny and the other one. The super pro-Israel one, and of course Patrick himself. They just don't put in a lot of time into this. So